My mom favored my sister and ignored me. In the end, my perfect sister ran off. From a young age, I always knew that my mother neglected me in favor of my older sister, Emma. It wasn't hard to notice. Everything my mother did seemed to revolve around Emma. When my father passed away 5 years ago, things only worsened. All my mother's attention and pride were directed at Emma, and I became just a shadow in the family. Emma was the center of everything. As a child, she got the best of everything, the newest toys, clothes, and gadgets. I, on the other hand, was handed her cast-offs, things she no longer wanted. Every birthday for Emma was a grand celebration with friends and family, while my birthdays were just quiet dinners at home with a small cake my mother bought in a rush. As we grew older, I felt the injustice more intensely. While Emma went on to attend a prestigious university to study law, my own aspirations were dismissed. When I expressed interest in studying graphic design, my mother simply brushed it off, saying it was not a career worth pursuing. Instead, she pushed me into a short-term course at a local college. To her, everything Emma did was worthy of admiration, while I was expected to settle for the bare minimum. The unfairness didn't stop at comparisons. My mother assigned me every household chore without even asking. Every morning, I would wake up early to make breakfast for the family while Emma stayed in bed. After serving them breakfast, I'd wash the dishes, do laundry, clean the house, and then rush to my part-time job at a coffee shop. When I got home in the evening, I was expected to cook dinner and tidy up, all while Emma relaxed on the couch, lost in her phone. My mother never questioned it. Sometimes, exhausted, I would ask my mother for a break, but she would just say, "Emma needs her time to study. You should help her out." I felt like a servant in my own home, like my purpose was only to keep everything in order so that Emma could succeed. One weekend, I finally had an opportunity to work with some friends from college on a group project. Something I'd been looking forward to for weeks. It was a rare chance to break out of my routine and connect with people. But that morning, my mother demanded I stay home to deep clean the living room. I tried to remind her of my plans, but she simply said, "You should prioritize family first." I begged her to let Emma help, but she dismissed it coldly. Emma needs to focus on her studies. At that moment, all the frustration and pain I'd buried for years exploded. I demanded to know why everything in the family had to revolve around Emma. Why nothing I did ever mattered. And why I had to sacrifice everything for her. My mother looked at me with a condescending stare and said, "Because Emma is going to be successful. You're just ordinary." Those words hit me like a knife. After years of trying to gain her approval, I was finally hearing her true feelings. At that moment, I decided to leave. I packed a few belongings, left the house, and didn't look back. Moving in with my best friend Sarah felt like a breath of fresh air. No longer bound to the role of a family housekeeper, I could focus on my studies and even take on freelance graphic design projects. For the first time, I felt like I was worth something, independent of Emma's shadow. 6 months later, my life was completely different. I had a steady job, could support myself, and was building a career. Everything was going well until one evening I received an unexpected call from my mother. She was crying, saying that Emma had run off with a boy, taking all of her savings. She asked if I could come home and help her. Hearing her pleas, I felt a strange mix of pity and anger. I returned home, but this time, not out of a desire to forgive, but to tell my mother that I was done. The house, once so spotless, was now in disarray, and my mother looked older and frailer than ever. She held my hands, begging for forgiveness, admitting that she had been wrong and hadn't valued me. She hoped I would come back and help her rebuild. I looked into her tired, regretful eyes, but my heart was hardened. I told her, "Mom, I can't come back. I've built my own life. A life where I don't need your approval or Emma's validation. I'm done sacrificing for you. I want to live for myself now." My mother broke down, pleading with me to reconsider. But I knew I had made the right choice. Walking out of that house a second time, I felt a deep sadness, but also a sense of release. I no longer bore the weight of the past, my mother's impossible expectations, or the burden of living in Emma's shadow. Now, I am free to build a life where I am in control of my own happiness. My mother, however, will have to face the consequences of her choices alone. After my sister stole from me, my mother wants to defend her by sending me to military school. The story is about a teenage boy who faced many difficult days as he struggled with the favoritism his mother showed toward his younger sister. Here is the full story. The story begins when the boy, at age 14, discovered that his sister had been repeatedly stealing money he had diligently saved over the years. His younger sister, spoiled and never expected to do any chores, spent all her allowance on things like makeup, clothes, and fast food. Meanwhile, he had to do household chores to earn his small allowance from his father. To save money for a scooter, he took on various odd jobs around the neighborhood, mowing lawns and collecting bottles to exchange for cash. After 2 years, he had saved a substantial amount, but his sister repeatedly stole from his hiding spots. When he confronted his sister, she simply denied it. Whenever she was caught in the act, she would pretend to cry and run to their mother, painting him as the one at fault. Despite showing evidence of his missing money, his mother constantly defended his sister, not only refusing to reprimand her but even blaming him for pressuring his sister. Feeling that this was completely unfair, he decided to call his father for help. After hearing the story, his father immediately intervened, confronting his mother. Although she initially tried to excuse the sister's actions, she reluctantly admitted the theft but showed no remorse. To protect his son's savings, the father bought a safe and installed a lock on his son's bedroom door without informing the mother or sister. With this protection, he gradually felt more secure about his savings. But things didn't end there. His sister continued trying to break into his room, and during one attempt to open the safe, she threw it out the window, breaking the glass. This time, the father was more decisive, punishing the sister by cutting her allowance and forcing her to apologize. However, the mother still showed no regret and continued to support the sister, even attempting to pressure him further by forging the father's signature on an application to send him to military school. When the father discovered this, he was furious and decided to end this absurd favoritism. He demanded that the mother stop her unfair behavior and even threatened legal action if she continued to push their son out of the home. The situation reached its peak when the father found out that the mother was involved with an old high school boyfriend. This was the last straw, leading him to file for divorce and fight for custody of his son. The boy moved in with his father, finally free from the oppression and injustice of his mother. After the divorce, his relationship with his sister was completely severed, and they no longer shared any connection. He embarked on a new life, full of freedom and peace. This is a touching story of persistence and the determination to protect oneself in an unjust family environment. It also illustrates the strength of a father's love and protection, as he stood up to fight for his son's fairness and well-being. The story's conclusion about the mother and younger sister unfolds in a way that no one would have hoped for. Yet it reflects the inevitable consequences of their actions and the personalities they cultivated over the years. After the divorce and her son's departure, the mother gradually lost the control she once wielded within the family. Her life quickly became empty without the presence of her husband and son, whom she had frequently manipulated and vented her frustrations upon. Initially, she hoped to find happiness with her old high school sweetheart, the man who had rekindled her youthful feelings. However, that relationship didn't turn out as she had expected. Her lover was only interested in a casual, non-committal affair. Once he realized she was too reliant on him and seeking a serious commitment, he left her behind, alone and betrayed. She realized she had no one left by her side. Her dreams of control and love shattered, leaving her isolated, a fitting price for the selfishness and favoritism she had sown in the past. As for the younger sister, she continued her habit of stealing, having never learned to change her ways. Without her father's guidance, her mother's discipline, or her brother to exploit, she spiraled further into theft and dishonesty in the outside world. Her stealing escalated. She began to take from friends, coworkers, and even shops. Initially, she received minor warnings, but as her offenses grew, people lost patience with this habitual thief. Eventually, she was caught red-handed while trying to steal from a large store. She was detained and faced charges, with no one left to defend her. Her mother, now emotionally shattered and lacking the strength to help, could only watch helplessly as her daughter faced legal consequences. Seeing her daughter in handcuffs, taken away in front of others, deepened the mother's regret, but it was too late to reverse the damage. Both mother and daughter paid the price for their misdeeds. the mother was left alone with her sorrow and losses. And the sister confronted the law for her deep-rooted tendency to steal. This outcome serves as a harsh, but fair, lesson for the mistakes they made in the past. My wife's sister tried to kiss me and now my wife is spiraling. Help me. In the beginning, life with Jenna felt like stepping into a world of light and warmth that I hadn't realized was possible. From our first meeting, I was struck by her unique beauty. She had this grace that was both powerful and delicate. An elegance that didn't demand attention but earned it naturally. I would tell her daily how lucky I felt, how stunning she was, but every time, she'd deflect, laughing it off, often bringing up her sister, Mary, in a way that puzzled me. Just wait until you meet Mary, Jenna would say, almost as if it were a foregone conclusion that Mary's beauty would outshine hers. Mary was a former model with a conventional charm that could grace any fashion magazine cover. By comparison, Jenna's beauty was subtler, softer, something that deepened over time rather than flashing brightly on the surface. She was intelligent, too, brilliant, actually, a neuroscientist, fluent in multiple languages, and a musician, yet, somehow, her family couldn't see beyond the allure of her sister. It was a concept I would come to learn as the golden child syndrome. Jenna had grown up in an environment where her accomplishments were often overlooked in favor of her sister's superficial charm. As we dated, Jenna would occasionally probe me with questions about Mary, curious if I found her more attractive. Every time, I'd brush it off, reaffirming to Jenna that I was taken by her and only her. I reassured her that I found Mary's beauty plain in comparison to hers. This reassured her for a moment, but a deep-seated insecurity lingered beneath the surface, one that I didn't fully understand until much later. The first time I met Mary, I understood, at least in part, why Jenna felt as she did. Mary was captivating, yes, but her mannerisms felt exaggerated. She held herself in that manner that models do, every movement calculated for effect. And yet, there was a shallowness, an emptiness in her gaze that made her beauty feel like a facade. Jenna was refreshingly real, a stark contrast to her sister's polished performance. But my admiration only seemed to fuel Jenna's insecurities. Everyone always thought Mary was the pretty one, and I was just the smart one. Jenna confessed to me one night. I could hear the pain in her voice, the weight of years spent in her sister's shadow. I held her, reassuring her that she was the only one for me, that I would never, in 1,000 lifetimes, choose anyone else. I wanted her to feel as cherished and secure as I saw her, to understand that my love was unshakable. But over time, the occasional comments from Mary morphed into something more. She would brush up against me, laugh a bit too loud at my jokes, and make subtle but pointed remarks about our relationship. At family gatherings, I felt her lingering gaze, her flirtations becoming more overt. Jenna noticed too. Every time, she would pull away from me slightly, her eyes downcast, a shadow crossing her features. I could feel her slipping away, an invisible wall growing between us that I didn't know how to break down. Then, at a family gathering, things took an unexpected and shocking turn. It was a party for Jenna's mother's birthday, filled with the usual chatter and laughter. Mary approached me at one point, asking for help grabbing supplies from the garage. I saw nothing suspicious about the request and followed her, only to find myself cornered the moment we stepped inside. Before I could react, she pressed herself against me, her body practically pinning me to the door, and leaned in as though she were about to kiss me. I pushed her away instantly, anger and shock coursing through me. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded, unable to mask my fury. Mary merely laughed, claiming she was acting on what she thought was mutual interest. I was appalled. Without another word, I left the garage and went straight to Jenna, telling her we needed to leave. On the drive home, I struggled with how much to tell her. I knew the truth would hurt, but keeping silent felt wrong. In the end, I told her everything. Jenna listened quietly, tears rolling down her face as she absorbed the betrayal. She began to unravel, her insecurities spiraling out of control as she pulled further and further away from me. Questioning her own worth, I felt helpless, unsure of how to comfort her or fix the damage her sister had inflicted. Mary twisted the story, of course, reaching out to Jenna and claiming I had been the one to make a move on her. Jenna didn't believe Mary, but the accusation stung deeply. Days turned into weeks as Jenna sank into despair. Her self-esteem shattered. She started avoiding my touch, recoiling whenever I tried to hold her or comfort her. It was as though Mary's actions had cast a shadow over our marriage, a darkness we couldn't shake. The heartbreak Jenna suffered also began to wear on me, frustration and helplessness festering within. But even as I supported her, I was dealing with my own pain. For 6 years, Mary had flirted with me and made inappropriate comments. Yet I had buried my discomfort for the sake of peace. My voice had gone unheard, overshadowed by the impact Mary's actions had on Jenna. This realization was a bitter pill to swallow. But it also marked a turning point. I couldn't bury my feelings any longer. I had to draw a line, not just for Jenna but for myself. The decision to go no contact with Mary and, eventually, with Jenna's family wasn't easy. But it was necessary. Jenna began therapy, working through her long-standing insecurities and trauma, gradually reclaiming her self-worth. For the first time, she saw that her family's opinions did not define her. She could stand strong, beautiful, and accomplished in her own right. I supported her every step of the way, marveling at her resilience and newfound strength. Mary didn't let go easily. Her harassment escalated, targeting my workplace and accusing me of assault in an attempt to ruin my reputation. But my boss saw through her lies. And with Jenna's encouragement, I pursued legal action. We sent a cease and desist letter to Mary, setting clear boundaries. It was a difficult but liberating experience, taking back control of our lives and reclaiming our peace. In the months that followed, Jenna blossomed. Therapy gave her the tools to confront her insecurities, and she embraced her true self with confidence. Our marriage grew stronger as we both healed, rediscovering the love that had once felt threatened by Mary's interference. We learned to communicate openly, to lean on each other through both joy and pain. Then, unexpectedly, a letter arrived from Jenna's parents. Her father was supposedly dying of cancer, and they begged for reconciliation. Jenna was skeptical, sensing manipulation. I worried about future regrets if her father's illness was real. But ultimately, I respected her decision to stay no contact. We had chosen peace over toxicity, a path that led us away from the trauma of her past. Today, as we await the arrival of our first child, I am filled with gratitude and hope. Jenna is my queen, a woman who has overcome unimaginable hurt and emerged stronger, more radiant than ever. She taught me the importance of standing up for oneself, of setting boundaries with even the closest of kin when they threaten one's peace. Our daughter will grow up knowing her worth, loved and cherished in a home that values character over appearances. And as I hold Jenna, watching her glow with the light that first captivated me, I know that our love is resilient, built on a foundation that no one, least of all Mary, can shake. My best friends and wife forgot my big moment. I never thought I would find myself in this situation, feeling neglected and unappreciated by the people closest to me. It was a level of disappointment and hurt that I hadn't experienced before. It all started with a simple event that I, my wife, and my close friends had maintained for over a decade. Every year, I, along with my friends from college and my wife, participate in a fantasy football league. We've kept this league going for the past 12 years. Though it's just for fun, everyone takes it seriously, with a trophy and a speech to honor the previous year's winner. In recent years, one of my friends had won 6 years in a row, and each year, we held a big celebration for him, complete with the trophy and a dedicated speech. This year, I finally broke his winning streak and took home the championship. As the person who usually organized the celebration, arranged the trophy, and made sure everything went smoothly, I was looking forward to finally being on the receiving end of the recognition. When the day of the event came, I felt something was off. No one mentioned my win. After a few hours, my wife, who had had a few drinks, casually said she didn't even know who we were honoring this year. I reminded her that I had actually won this year, and I could see her expression change. She looked a bit confused. My friends around her also looked uncomfortable, glancing at each other before laughing and saying, "Wait, it was you?" It was at that moment I realized that nobody, not even my best friend or my wife, had remembered that I was the winner. No one had planned anything, no trophy, no speech, nothing. My wife tried to fix it by arranging for a round of applause when I came out of the restroom. But that only made me feel worse. The friend who had won 6 years in a row laughed hysterically at everyone's forgetfulness, making me feel even more isolated. In that moment, I felt utterly alone, like an outsider at a celebration that was supposed to be mine. The next morning, my wife offered a short apology and tried to make it up to me with a casual gesture. But that just made me feel even more disappointed. As I drove 6 hours back home, I couldn't stop thinking about how the people I loved the most had completely forgotten such an important moment in my life. Once I got home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I sent a message to a few friends in the group, expressing my disappointment. I knew I might feel calmer tomorrow, but the sadness and the sense of being let down lingered. Some of the comments I received from online friends provided a bit of comfort. They suggested that maybe because I was always the one organizing everything and making sure people felt appreciated, no one else thought to do the same for me. They advised me to talk openly with my friends and my wife, not because of a forgotten fantasy football win, but because of the underlying feeling of neglect and unappreciation. The next morning, I slept in the guest room. My wife tried to talk to me, hoping to resolve things quickly. But the first thing she said was, "This isn't that big of a deal, it's not like I cheated on you." I didn't respond, only feeling more hurt. She continued, asking how long I planned to punish her, and I simply replied that it wasn't all about her. She looked visibly frustrated, and this only deepened my sadness. None of my close friends took the initiative to apologize in front of everyone for the oversight. The friend who had won for 6 years even laughed at my awkwardness, which made me question whether these were truly the people I could rely on in life or just college friends for casual fun. I had spent so many years organizing these events, making them a fun tradition, only to be ignored when it was my turn to be celebrated. I started to wonder if I should reevaluate these friendships and my expectations of them. Are these really the people I want to count on during life's important moments? As for my wife, I realized we probably needed to have some serious conversations to address our differences in how we express respect and appreciation. Sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Not through grand betrayals, but simply through a lack of understanding of what we truly need.